letting your whole body settle through your posture. Which is to say that you do not stack one part of your body on top of the part beneath it, but rather you release the feeling of holding, the feeling of weightedness through your body. So by releasing the weight out of your body, the feeling of holding, the feeling of weight and holding are the same thing. By releasing that out of your body, into the chair, into the ground, you become lighter and lighter. Crown of the head floats up. That takes some of the pressure off of the shoulders, which are able to ease open, falling through, all the way to your fingertips. Nice and soft. And as the neck and shoulders open and become disinhibited, the chest is allowed to be empty. It no longer has to try to hold everything up. So you let it soften. And as it settles, there's this feeling of sinking down toward the navel, filling the belly, and at the very least, softening your breath. Your upper back also softens. The shoulder blades are allowed to release down your back. They just fall. Your lower back begins to open, because without all of this weight from above compressing it, as long as the weight is passing through the center of the body rather than back or forward, it's just falling into the chair, then your spine is free, your neck is decompressing it from up above, your hips are settling, and so the weight simply falls out of your lower back and it spreads open. Instead of being compressed, it falls open. I thought I would talk about the kidneys a bit more today. And one of the ways that we nourish and enhance the health of the kidneys is by taking pressure out of the lower back. So by softening the spine long, releasing outward, lengthening through the body, allowing the front of the body to soften, the back of the body to open, the middle of the body to be empty and free, full, empty so it can fill. And of course, softening your hips and your legs so that they simply come to rest. Make sure that your feet are warm. That is another way that we continue to protect and nourish the kidneys. Cold feet drain kidney qi. And with each comfortable exhalation, you allow your body to soften further. Your chest releases, your belly softens, your lower back is allowed to open. Everything is free and easy. softer and softer. Just another minute or so, letting go, falling into the present moment. In a moment, I will take off my headphones and we can do the sequence over the face and the head, back of the neck. Remember to keep your hands warm, to keep the pressure light and your awareness sinking into that particular layer between the bone or the muscle and the skin, that in-between space. Keep your attentiveness friendly, and when your mind wanders away, just bring it back. That's another thing that's nourishing for the kidneys, this return, this settling constantly, settling of the mind, settling of the breath, settling of the body. This is nourishing for kidney qi. Every time we're agitated and disruptive and running through our body and our nervous system and our mind, that slowly drains this deep well of the kidney qi. And so we want to have this quality of deep stillness and presence, or to at least move in that direction. And of course, as we do in every class, I'd like to welcome the people who are brand new and who are not quite sure what's going on. Please do check down below in the comment section for a link to a video that teaches this as an introductory series. So to help you learn what the heck we're doing and why we're doing it, so that later when you come back and join us for these live classes, you can enjoy them more. So before, when we talked about the kidney channel, we talked about how it originates in the foot in this system, comes up the bottom of the foot, comes up the Achilles here, back of the leg, in that space, like behind the knee here, up toward the groin. And because we were just focusing on learning the primary channels in the arms and legs, we stopped there. Point up here near the groin. What we didn't know is that it continues up here along the center line. And so here's my middle line, that renmai that we talked about before, that conception vessel. And if this is the center renmai, if I just come out a little bit off to the sides, this is one branch of the kidney channel. It runs along the front of the body. It gets a little bit wider and goes around the sternum, depending on how big your sternum is. But just off to the sides of the sternum there's a little hole where it falls off. And that's where the kidney channel penetrates into, and it reaches up here, up under the collarbone. This area that sometimes we try to work into. And then afterward, when we're doing this movement, part of our fingers are moving down the midline, part of our fingers are coming off, brushing along the sides. And that helps to move this kidney channel down as well. And so we'll do a little bit more work when we get to the center on the kidney line. But I wanted to mention one of the reasons why we do this shape here when we're coming down. It's for this kidney channel. We still want to learn about Chinese medicine as we do our practice. A little bit all the time. So if you can, just commit it to memory. It'll become easy over time. Expressing gentleness through your hands, softness. Every minute of this form leaves your hands a bit softer than they were before, if you're doing it right. So even up here, you may have the urge to want to dig in and start pushing, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're relieving a different layer. So please do take the time to let your awareness soak in all the way around here. When your mind wanders away, gently release the distraction, release the agitation, soften your mind, and it will naturally fall back into the present moment, which is really the only thing that's actually happening. Develop the ability to be more interested in what's actually happening than whatever it is your mind is imagining. Take the time to really soften in this area. For many people, this area becomes thick and impenetrable, and you may need to take extra time here. You may need to put your palm on it and connect with it and let your awareness find time to soak in. If this is a problematic space for you, then please do spend that time. Since we're talking about the kidney channel, the main channel line that I'd like you to remember, as long as you're memorizing them, is that one that travels from the bottom of the foot, up the inside of the leg, and then up the front line of the body, up into here in the collarbone. It tends to dive into the lung area here, has an impact on the lungs. And one other whole system that relates to the kidneys relates the heart channel to the kidneys. It's part of the kidney channel. And so by working this area here, in one way, you are helping this aspect of the kidney channel here. Just thought I'd mention it since we're talking about the kidneys, but you don't have to memorize that if you don't want to. The heart and kidney shaoyin. Shaoyin is this way of looking at the body, how it relates above and below in connection. Taking the time, softening these areas, letting your awareness soak into them. You might find it easier to let your awareness soak into these points. Yeah, Ray, you're right. Fire and water, the heart and the kidney. And some people, the way they talk about it, they're the same channel running through the body. I'm glad you made it, Mr. Ray. It's nice to have you here. You bring a touch of class to this class. Softening open. Take your time. And remember, if you're wanting to revisit any of these lessons that we've gone through over the course of the past, over 2 months now, they're all online. Right now, they're just up on Patreon. But when the 100 days are finished, I'll upload the whole thing onto YouTube so people can watch it and review the sequence as much as you like, in case you're using it to learn about channels or other Chinese medicine concepts. So I want all of these teaching series that we do to include tidbits of information so people can slowly learn about Chinese medicine or other useful healing aspects. Remember that if the top of the shoulder is especially troublesome for you, perhaps take extra time here. And probably if your shoulders are really tight, you'll want to use your other hand to help you release and relieve that area without adding tension. You can take as long as you need. Learning to listen to your body and then apply the medicine where it's needed most. The medicine in this case is simply this quiet, loving attention. Lung 5. Part of the way the kidneys function in Chinese medicine is through the breath. It controls part of the inhalation-exhalation cycle. The lungs are said to control the exhalation, and the kidneys control the inhalation, this idea that they sort of reach up and grasp the breath and they pull it down, and that's their quality. And then the lungs release it outward. And so clinically, you'll often have people come in and they perhaps can inhale with no problem, and then they exhale with difficulty. The lungs sort of trap the air inside. And then there are other people, they have no problem exhaling, but they feel as though their inhalation is very weak and they're just not getting enough air. And that's usually a kidney. Kidney's unable to grasp the qi, as a way of saying it. And so by developing this quality of clear upright posture and this ability to sink the qi and settle into stillness and softness, you'll find that it's not only easier to breathe, both because you're making space for the breath rather than tightening your body and making it impossible to get the breath into that space, but also the quality of your breath will increase because your kidneys have more capacity from the qi perspective to gather in this breath and to allow it to nourish the body. So as we sit here and we rest and we soften open these places in the body, have some sense of attentiveness to the clarity of your posture. So your body is open and free and able to soften, letting go of the inside to make space for breath and movement. Softening this area open, especially if, like me, you've had a lot of silly martial arts injuries or you've spent too much time with a hammer. This area tends to get bound up because it's had so many traumas in my body. And I can feel where this warmth and movement stops, which means I need to be extra gentle and consistent rather than pushing harder and trying harder. That just causes more problems. Just a reminder for the people who have been studying Qigong or other movement arts, that as your hand and elbow lift, you let your shoulder blades sink down the back. And that's also what causes this arm to turn over. The shoulders soften down the back. And then the chest sinks and you relax. So both of these movements, even though my hand seems like it's going up, they're really a softening down in both directions. If you find yourself pushing your hand upward and then pushing down, all you're doing is pushing your chi up and causing more agitation. Your mind will get louder. It'll be more difficult to breathe. Instead, everything goes, and then, in both directions. You can go as slowly as you need to make it happen. Be soft, comfortable. Closing when you're done. Taking the time to let your awareness settle down through the body, letting everything go that might otherwise be trapped up in the head, the neck, the shoulders. And let your awareness collect in that space, at least in the navel, if you can, behind the navel, in that space between the navel and the spine. And like Ray was mentioning, this is that quality of placing your awareness, which is like a fire, and combining it with water, this kidney chi down below. Combining fire and water makes something very special. And for those of you that have been following this practice for the last couple of months, you do want to allow yourself to settle more and more deeply into these quiet spaces. This closing, settling space is, in a way, the most important practice that we do. So please don't skip it. And take a little bit longer if you need to sink a little bit more deeply each time. Over the course of 100 days, if you settle 1% more deeply each class, by the end of it, your experience will be quite different. But only if you wait and you listen a little bit more carefully each time. Combining that fire and the water, and then noticing whatever it is that you notice. Black pour, very delicious. So here, as we warm the sternum, and the line just on the outside of the sternum, tu tsun, a couple of body inches to the outside, wherever your sternum ends there. Our hands also make contact there, and this is this part of this kidney channel. Allowing that sense of warmth and presence to soak in. And then that solar plexus space. The point that I was listing before, if you look on the paper that Master ZhiCheng offered as an outline for these points, the point here is Ren 15, but that would be a very small spot. The kidney channel is just half a centimeter off to either side, half of a body inch. And so by stimulating this point, really you're also, again, stimulating this kidney channel. And you don't have to focus on that. I'm simply mentioning it because that's what we're looking at today. But your awareness does soften and soak into the solar plexus, easing that space open, letting go of the breath there. You soften it enough, you can develop that funny party trick that I showed you before where you breathe through the solar plexus only. You can have a lot of movement and breath through that space, not because you force it, but because it becomes so soft that it becomes transparent to the breath. And then also the space between the solar plexus and the navel. Zhongguan. And not just a point in the center, but the points 1/2 inch on either side. Notice how softening this channel, softening this line, impacts the ease of your breath. Allow your breath to fall inward more easily because you're making space in these areas that otherwise may have been a little bit closed. Similarly, under the ribs here. We're not trying to dig in and force things to change. We're warming and stimulating, allowing it to soften. And then notice how that allows your breath to expand into the space that you're softening. Not because you're pulling on the breath, but just because you're making room for it. The breath does its own thing. Same with the ribs. We soften, allowing your fingers to sink into those spaces between the ribs a little bit. Not because you're pushing hard, just the warmth and your attention soaks in. And notice how, as you soften these areas, the intercostal spaces, it's as though the breath finds its way into these spaces more easily. The softer you get, the more room there is to breathe. The higher the quality of your breath. Emphasizing in this circle this settling downward and consolidating toward the navel. Shoulder blades sink down the back. Chest softens. Everything is released. Especially during the springtime, it can be nice to really let this softness come in through the ribs. And then in this direction, whenever you get to it, emphasizing again this consolidating and settling down to the space at the navel. Your chest softens, your shoulder blades release down the back. Washing down the kidney channels as well. This line here is nourishing for the kidneys because you're helping to gather and sink the qi, but it's also very good for digestion and elimination. And breath is a lot like digestion in that just because I put a bunch of food into my mouth and swallow it doesn't mean I digested well. Doesn't mean I extract the good things from the food. It may just pass right through me. I can eat a bicycle, but it doesn't mean I digest it. Not that I recommend that anybody eat a bicycle. And the breath is the same. As you settle, notice that you're not just making space for the breath and taking in more breath effortlessly, but that you're extracting more of the good stuff from your breath with each inhalation. And again, don't add force, don't start trying to breathe more, that will get in the way. Just notice how you're more nourished from your breath as you make space and soften and quiet. This is one of the major ways that we gather qi. Softening through here. We normally work this point here, stomach 30, just in the soft space in the middle, using it to help send qi down through the legs. It also is an opening to this chungmai, this central vessel that we talked about, the penetrating vessel. And a little bit further in, near this tendon that you feel there, is one of the entry points for the kidney channel as it moves up. So you can soften that space if you'd like to. Remember that as you place your hands on your back, if it's uncomfortable for your wrists or shoulders to place your palms, you can use the eye of the fist or the back of the hand. And that's okay too. Not quite as warming. But you do not want to start to introduce tension into your hands and your shoulders. Keeping your shoulders neutral, don't lean back or round forward. Just stay soft. Move at the speed that feels comfortable for you. You might find that as your lower back softens, that there's this sense of more breath being drawn into your lower back. It's like the breath, as you inhale, starts to soak into the lower back in a different way. Remember, if you try to push your breath there, you'll just get in your own way. Develop the ability to simply pay attention and notice that as you soften, there might be this soaking into the back, this nourishing and softening of the back from the inside. That's one of the wonderful things about this particular set. It's soft and it makes space for these really subtle changes to happen. And if you watch them over the course of 100 days, they become more and more evident, more and more nourishing. In another week or so, I'll increase the number again that we're doing here in the back. We simply want to make certain that we're not adding tension or force into our arms and shoulders. But if this is very comfortable for you already, please feel free to spend more time nourishing and softening this area. This whole process on the back is very healing and nourishing for the kidneys. In Chinese medicine, this area relates to the kidney qi. So by softening and warming and opening it, it's directly benefiting the kidneys. And softening the sides of the hips here. If you've ever experienced something called piniformis syndrome, you'll feel how this hip connects to the tailbone and everything gets pulled tight. And so we soften this open. This as well can help to release some of the tension in the lower back and how it relates to the hips. Pulling and tightening we have around the knees. Similarly here in gallbladder 30, softening the center of the hip. Being very gentle about it. And then the sides of the hips. Sides of the thighs. Same channel as that we were working on the side of the hip. If we move down, gallbladder 30, 31, 32. So anywhere along this line that feels especially tight for you, especially reactive or tender, please do spend some time soothing it open. Remember that because it's such a reactive area of the body, it's so easily agitated that if you start poking on it, pushing on it hard, you just make it more tender, more reactive, more agitated. So you have to use a very soothing touch, kind of sneak up on it. Even when I'm doing acupuncture in these areas, I'll often just start on these points by touching them with the flat of my palm until they soften and open. If I just try to do acupuncture or acupressure on them right away, all they do is tighten. So you have to learn to ease these areas of your body open with intention and this unconditional friendliness. Just on the outside above the knee, stomach 34. inside the knee. Again, you can either just use your fingertips in this area if that feels the best, maybe the base of your thumb. Today, the center of the palm feels very good to me. And rather than rubbing over the surface, I'm tending to stay in one spot and simply make circles. But you want to use the technique that helps you feel the most release, which means that you need to tune into the process of release. What is it that helps you feel that release as you listen? And because we are working on the kidney channel today, I thought we could put a little bit of pressure here. If you find this tendon here, just on the inside of the knee, the fold of the knee, there's a kidney point tucked up inside in that tendon there, in between these two tendons, just on the inside here. And so by gently nourishing and softening this area, helping to ease open these two tendons here, this can be very helpful for the kidney channel. So I'm plucking with my fingertips, and my palms are warming the side of my knee here at the same time. And we don't usually do this movement, but if this feels particularly good to you, then simply add it in. Put it in your daily practice. Being kind to your knees, nourishing the kidney channel. Then the space behind the knees, in between this tendon and the tendon in the middle, just directly behind the knee. The point we were just working on the kidneys is to the inside, in the middle of those tendons on the inner part of the knee. This is a bladder point, bladder 40. This point helps to soften the lower back, which is also, of course, helpful for the kidneys. Spending a little extra time there. Make sure that as you are stimulating this point, you're not collapsing or rounding out or holding your back in some way. This point is trying to help you soften your back. Don't tighten your back in order to relax your back. That's not a useful strategy. Stomach 36. Just at the top of this anterior tibialis muscle, along the shin. Gallbladder 34 on the side, a little above and to the outside of those points. Let's spend a little extra time here as well. This is nourishing for the kidneys because the kidneys part of their chi nourishes and keeps the knees strong and healthy. And so by helping the knees, we are inadvertently helping the kidney chi. As long, again, as we're not tightening and straining our lower back to make this happen or holding our breath. There are plenty of ways to turn this into something that harms your kidneys instead of helps them. So please be gentle, using all of the skills we've slowly been developing over the last couple of months. The kidney channel runs from this space here between the tendons, and it goes down along the Achilles here to the bottom of the foot. And so you can spend some time helping to open and nourish that line, which we do every time anyway, but you can remind yourself of the channel progress and feel it warm and open. And if you ever want to nourish and benefit the kidney chi, which you do always want to do, keep these areas warm, keep them soft. Your feet, your knees, your lower back and belly, always warm. This spleen 6 point here, just above the inside of the ankle, and the point between the ankle and the Achilles there. These are both very useful kidney points. Warming and nourishing all the way around the ankle. Here are kidney points that are worth warming up. Letting your mind soak into that membrane, that fascia, beneath the skin that's wrapping around your ankle, wrapping around your foot, thickens on the bottom of the foot, attaching to all of these structures, feeling into them, letting your mind spread out. Spending extra awareness, softening and warming the bottom of the foot here. Opening the spaces between the bones, softening the feet and the toes. Especially as your feet warm and begin to soften, you want to help them spread out. For lots of people, this area has become stagnant and it becomes kind of a closed area. And it can be painful to just practice standing posture, for instance, until they're forced open. It's nicer to do it this way, where we're gently helping it open and soften through, so that when we do practice things like standing posture, then they're more easily malleable and they find their way through to connect to the ground. helping them change. Being kind. If you'd like to, and you don't have anybody living in the floor beneath you, with your knees staying bent, you can gently slap the bottoms of your feet against the ground. Make sure you're not locking your knees or doing any damage. You're just gently stimulating the bottom of the foot at kidney 1 point against the ground. If it feels nice, go ahead and do that and add it to your set. If it doesn't, cut it out. Remember, this is easier to do if you're sitting on the ground. Softening open. Easier if you're not on a rolling stool as well. Engaging and enlivening your feet. We can touch one toe, then the other. I'll copy with my hands. Engaging around the feet, moving around this kidney 1 point in the center of the foot. Waking your feet up. You can also grasp with your feet like you're trying to grab and lift something up. Spreading your toes apart, moving around that kidney 1 point, making it hollow and alive. Don't use too much force. You're not trying to tighten your feet. You're trying to soften. Turning your waist, softening your torso. And let's do a bit of the teeth tapping. The teeth are considered the most external part of the bones. And the bones are nourished and, in a way, controlled by the kidney qi. This is part of Chinese medicine as well. And so one of the indications of healthy kidney qi is the health of the teeth. And so by nourishing this aspect of our teeth, it's another way, like with the knees, that we can continue nourishing the kidneys. The ears are similar, actually. So I'll take these off. Gathering your saliva and swallowing it down. Following its movement as though you can trace its path all the way down to that space behind the navel. And then just a few moments allowing your awareness to consolidate there. Thank you, everybody. It's really lovely having you here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I appreciate everybody joining me for this kidney fest. In traditional Chinese cosmology, the color of the kidneys is this deep black blue color, like the deep ocean. And so I wore my kidney blues today in honor of the kidney celebration. Yeah, the flowers are really beginning to bloom all over. So beautiful. Such is spring, welcoming a new year. Oh, I'm glad you made it, Ray. I'm really grateful for you coming. I love you all. Enjoy your practice.